Normally when I publish a drive and talk, it's after a couple of days of installing some new hardware. But admittedly, I've had this one now since December, so I've had it a while. I didn't immediately get this mounted to the rig when it arrived, but I have been using it for several weeks, so I'm very familiar with it. So I want to give you some impressions of what I remember from when I initially got this mounted to the rig. I have a CSL-DD, 8 Newton meter CSL-DD, and I will say my first impression was this feels very much like my CSL-DD, 8 Newton meters, but this does have more power, and that does come with some advantages, which I'll go to in a moment. But yeah, it was very familiar, and that's not a bad thing, because I do like the CSL-DD. I like the texture and the force feedback from that wheelbase. So going to this wheelbase, it was very familiar to me. And that was good, because when you swap between different brands of wheelbase, there's something that's really apparent, is the force feedback feels different from wheelbase to wheelbase. I mean, it's the same force feedback cues, you recognise them, but the characteristics of the flavour of the force feedback, the nuance of it is unique to that brand, I tend to find, or that wheelbase itself. So potentially you could find, different wheelbases from the same brand won't be quite identical feeling, but this does feel like my CSL-DD. The kind of the texture, the sort of details, the way the weight comes through the wheel as I turn into corners, the build up of it, it's very, very familiar. And yeah, so I'm kind of happy with it. It was very easy for me to get used to this wheelbase immediately, essentially. There was no sort of like learning curve for me to get past. It was just, it was kind of more of the same. Now I do need to run some back-to-back tests compared to my CSL-DD to get a to perceive any sort of measure of any differences, because right now I can't really tell, or at least I can't remember now, if there is any benefit from the detail, is any kind of sensitivity, any more kind of small elements coming through this force feedback over my CSL-DD. I'm expecting there should be. It may be kind of subtle, so it may not matter too much, but I will say the most noticeable thing, and I do appreciate, is the actual torque is better for me for some cars. Not necessarily this car, you don't need really heavy weights from the wheel, but for stock cars and Formula cars, I find my CSL-DD it's a little bit light. I want heavier counterforce weights when I'm turning into corners, feeling the weight of the car, feeling the downforce, where I find my CSL-DD 8 Newton meters isn't quite there. I want a couple more extra, Newton meters of torque to get me there. Obviously things are still drivable, but it always felt like it wasn't quite, giving me what I wanted. So it wasn't the perfect all-rounder. For a lot of sim racing, my CSL-DD was absolutely fine. I've got no issue with it, but yeah, it's just lacking a little bit. So that's where this DD Plus, ClubSport DD Plus, puts it in the zone for me. So I'm really happy about that. It's very nice. It's kind of a good all-rounder, no compromises essentially. Now potentially this is also a lower latency wheelbase over my CSL-DD, though I have to be honest, I can't tell the difference between them. FANATEC do make a fuss on their webpage about the properties of its speed, the low latency of the signals from the game coming through the wheelbase. Now, sure, that could be an advantage. I would say technically on paper it probably is the thing. Perceivably, it probably isn't something that's going to really matter to anybody. If I'm perfectly honest, I've never had a wheelbase which I felt was lagging, let's say. Even the cheapest entry-level wheelbases, I've never had a problem with feeling that the force feedback was out of tune with the game. Yeah, sure, entry-level wheelbases lack detail in the force feedback, a lot of sensations don't come through it, but as for speed of it, I've never had an issue. So I'm not going to say you should buy it on the on the slew rate of this wheelbase. Potentially one element that may be useful for some people if you're on a hot climate or if you're running very long endurance races. And again, something FANATEC make a point of on their website is it being able to stand up to long sessions without essentially thermal throttling, force feedback fade, where the wheelbase gets to a certain heat temperature, overheats, and then has to kind of dial back the torque to protect itself from damage. Now, I've never had a problem again with any other wheelbase over a long period of time having force feedback fade, but some people kind of do sometimes. If you're maybe in a constantly hot climate, the ambient temperature is going to raise the temperature of the wheelbase, and maybe a wheelbase like this is going to have a benefit for you. But I guess that's going to be on a circumstance to circumstance situation there. But I can't say it's ever going to be something that's ever affected me, so I'm not going to worry about that. But possibly, something which this does offer. I do like the size of this wheelbase because the height and width is essentially the same as my CSL-DD, so I didn't need to rejig my sim rig in any way. It just mounted in exactly the same way. It's got the same mount points, so that was good, positive. So I was happy with that. I didn't have to kind of mess around with the sim rig, just use the same mounting system that I use on my CSL-DD, which incidentally I'm using the Moser table clamp, but without the clamp piece, just for the mounting system. I don't think you can see it in the frame here. I'll drop a link below to that video where I show you that with my CSL-DD, because I'm using exactly the same mount on this one, and it's absolutely perfect for me. So yeah, that's good. But yeah, if you're interested in that, I will put a video on that one. I haven't yet tested this on a PlayStation, but I will for my main review. I only recently set up a dedicated sim rig, and I only recently bought a PlayStation for that sim rig, so I can test hardware with PlayStation hardware or console hardware. If you want to check that out, you can check out my new rig. I'll drop a link below. That's using the SimLab PX P1X Pro sim rig, which I recently set up. Really nice, clean setup. So you can check that out. But for the review, I will plant this on my other rig and test it on a console. Though I must admit, I do think it's a little bit over the top to have a 50 Newton meter wheelbase just for a PlayStation setup, in my mind anyway. But everyone's obviously, you can decide on that one. But I will test it. But it does seem over the top to me. If that's all you're going to be using it for, I guess if you're going to be running it as a PlayStation PC, wheelbase, then I guess there's some merit there. But yeah, it does seem a bit over the top to me just to run a high torque wheelbase like this just for PlayStation games. I'm sure it'll be fun, and I'm sure it'll be fine, but it does seem like quite a bit expensive for that setup. That's my opinion anyway, but let me know in the comments what you think on that one. But there you go. I just wanted to give you some basic impressions of what this has been like. But yeah, I'm really happy with it. It's a nice, reliable platform. I had no problems with it. Really like the QR2 quick release, very stiff, very stable. I will run out a full detailed review. I'll dive in more detail about the force feedback. I'll compare it against my CSL-DD, run it on a PlayStation, and see how that goes as well. So there's a lot more to go on that one. These driving talks are very casual. They're just a bit of chit chat, so don't expect too much from it. I just wanted to give you some basic impressions of what I felt about this wheelbase, and yeah, so far really happy with it. But yeah, there's more to come. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.